Welcome back to another episode of the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their magique. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined tonight for a very special, if not disgusting and terrifying double feature by friends and returning host, Kevin Weinman and Dr. Michael Cloud. I know you don't want me to always say you're a doctor, because you don't want to be associated with Slither and the other movies I've made you watch. But tonight, it's very important to add that caveat.
I am actually... excited is not the right word, but I think this is actually an awesome opportunity to use this movie to kind of, as a medium, to educate the public, because Contagion is so good and so spot on so many things that I still think there's plenty of people in the country and in the world today that aren't quite taking this seriously. So I think like through this movie that actually may help kind of get the message across to take this situation extremely seriously. So I know we're usually like jokey and but I definitely want to make it clear
that's still my plan.
I definitely want to make it clear I'm not here to joke around with this one or make light of the situation. I am here actually using this podcast as an actual opportunity to reach the public and hopefully maybe even answer some questions.
So, like the virus, you've infected my podcast, and you're just taking over.
What?
and Griffey, did you hear that a second ago? That was every single one of your listeners immediately leaving this podcast.
It's funny because I'm kind of with Kevin. When you guys pitched this, I was like, I know a lot of people are watching this, but honest to God, since this thing started and we've been locked up, I have not been watching apocalypse and disease movies.
Yeah.
It's one of those weird things where to me, I was like, I don't know that this is what I want in my life right now, right? Like I'm still watching horror movies, but they seem quaint compared to like a possible future where we're murdering each other for toilet paper.
Well, so I truly believe though, based on you and I had talked about this, and every day that I looked on Amazon, I looked at Netflix, I go, guess what's like number 2 and number 1 with the bullet? Outbreak and Contagion. I think that both of these movies are really on the forefront of people, and I think it'll be great to be able to provide context as to whether or not they're actually standing firm with science facts. Like I will just lead off in the fact that like Contagion, there's a magazine called New Scientist, and they said it's hard to name many blockbusters, Hollywood blockbusters, that are invested in realities of science that Contagion is. So there's really a lot of validity to this film.
And I'll say, starting straight off, like watching Contagion, I was amazed at how spot on it was with so much stuff. And we can kind of pick it apart piece by piece as we go along. But I watched it, I'm like, this is actually very educational.
Yeah, and because, in case you guys haven't figured it out, tonight we're covering Contagion and Outbreak, right? Contagion's a little more what would happen if this were real, and Outbreak is like the Michael Bay version of what we're living, right? Which I'm super down for, by the way. But Contagion, man, it's weird, too, because I remember I actually got to go see this at a Writers Guild screening, and Matt Damon was there, right? I think he still had the shaved head and everything from filming Elysium, right? Nice. So him and who directed this? Soderbergh? Yeah. So him and Soderbergh were there, right? And they talked about their research process. Like they spent a lot of time with these people in Atlanta learning about this. And two of the things he said struck me is Matt Damon's like he became an obsessive. He compared it, I think he said, to like rituals and whatever. Like he's so precise in how he washes his hands now. Because the people were like, everyone always forgets the thumb. They don't do the thumb properly. Yep. And I remember that hit me, and I was like, oh, my God. So now, I'm like I'm J-O-ing my thumb every time I wash my hands because Matt Damon scared me that he was scared. And Soderbergh was like, we went in there and talked to these people, and he was like, the thing that struck them in their depth of research is these things are on the verge of breaking out all the time. Mm-hmm. And it becomes this amazing, kind of just luck of nature and timing and seasons and all these kind of ingredients to where like the things like they show in this movie just don't happen, but he's like, there's little pockets all over the place. And they're like, this could be the one. And so I left that screening. I was fucking terrified when I left that because the movie's tremendously scary, but then to hear them talk about it, you're like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the weird thing is how fast that wore off. And there's even a point in the movie when they talk about one of the reporters is interviewing Lawrence Fishburne's character, Dr. Cheever. And he's like, isn't this your guys' fault for over-scaring us with H1N1, right? The swine flu? and it was that very scene where I was like, man, this one's like too scary for me. Like I actually almost wanted to turn Contagion off because it just fucking felt too real. I was like, because that's the thing, even on this show tonight, and I know you want to talk like some medicine or whatever, to me this show always at its core is just entertaining people with other entertainment. And this one felt really hard to be entertained by right now. I'm not going to lie. It was brutal to watch.
It hits very close to home. Very. And it's interesting, that press conference they talk about in the movie, like, oh, we didn't take this seriously now starting off because, you over embellished H1N1. And I'm seeing that a lot right now in where people have basically become numb to warnings. Like, oh, you said this about H1N1. Yeah. You said this about Ebola. You said this about avian flu. You said this about monkeypox. And
was that a real one? Is that a thing?
By sheer fact that we actually had great systems in place to suppress these things, that it didn't affect the mass society, that we stopped it before it got bad. People just thought that they weren't big deals, but we had great mechanisms in place to handle it. And H1N1 was bad, definitely. Nothing.
There's a movie equivalent to that, right? That's like an old movie truism, right? Where they're like, if the sound guy's really good, you never notice the sound, right? The moment you notice sound, people are like, this movie sucks. Like the best guys that become this invisible hand, right?
Yep.
Kevin, you like me are a non-medical professional.
Yeah.
What struck you about watching Contagion right now, this time around?
I think this time around, what was a little bit frustrating or scary is that how certain things are treated from the very top level. How a handful of decisions right at the beginning of something like this means that it's gonna break out. That it's not gonna be contained, and that's I think our scenario now, I mean, I will give it this much. At least this isn't a viral epidemic that kills people within 48 to 72 hours or whatever the turn time was in Contagion.
For sure, man.
But like this, it gave some real life truths to this kind of shit can get out of hand real quick if you pivot and don't treat it with the amount of respect that it deserves. And you wonder whether or not we as a country weren't hit hard with a lot of these other things because we made the right decisions as a country to keep to mitigate the risk. And so I thought I was always fascinated by the virus itself. Like, I think it's really incredible, but like at the same time, I'm like, when you have the right people in place, I can absorb that more. When you don't have the right people in place, it's a little bit, it becomes incredibly scary in a quick amount of time. So that's what I got from it.
Yeah, and both of these movies are way scarier than what we're facing right now. Hopefully, knock on wood, right?
Well, yeah.
Like at the current state, like Mutaba virus from Outbreak, they're like, it's the Mike Tyson of viruses. It's coming into your house, taking your wife, you're done in like hour. Like that's the scariest virus of all time, right? But Contagions, even at 20 to 30%, you're like, oh my fucking God. It's so scary. What I was struck by this time, right, is I think the visual storytelling in this movie is so important, right? Because this one it's way more academic, it's way more procedural. And I think there's a point, like watching, I was like, where's the entertainment value in this movie to me? Like I was struck by this time, I was so upset watching it. I was like, why did I ever like this movie? I left that WGA screening and really liked it. But again, I wasn't.
It was a fantasy at the time.
Exactly right. But what struck me is that opening scene, and again, I think both of these movies have some of the scariest scenes in cinema, right? Especially now. Like, if you've never quite been through it, maybe you don't know. And we still haven't, right? Like, we're not living like this movie, but you kind of see how it could spiral out of control like that. But the thing they did in this movie that fucking terrified me was the start of the movie where they just showed how the very basic world we've set up is weaponized against us completely.
Yep.
Like, people just walking around, and Soderbergh does a great job of just so fast cutting between person to thing they touched to person in a new location to elevator to portfolio to car keys, the bus poles, right? Every subway where people are grabbing the bus handles. And they do that throughout this movie. it made me have a panic attack. Because I watched this movie and I said, could you fucking imagine the next time you're about to get on an airplane?
Yeah.
And that's what this movie did to me. I was like, Soderbergh weaponized our day-to-day lives.
Mike, what were you about to say?
I was going to, a lot of things. I did want to say, like, starting off before I get accused of creating panic here, what we're, like you said, Griffey, what we're dealing with is nowhere on the level of Contagion as far as mortality or severity. But it's still bad and needs to be taken seriously. Like the mortality rate, I think they said in Contagion was like 30%. So we're like 1 to 3% overall average in the world. Still insanely high numbers. That's very bad, but not like 30% bad. And we're dealing with more of a pulmonary illness than one that causes encephalitis, which is what happened in that movie where the virus.
What did happen to her? Is her brain melting? Is that what happened when they
described it? But it sounds like there was some gross, large change that was visible to the naked eye to the brain.
They opened her head up, and it was just that candle that smells like her vagina. She's like, oh, God.
Oh, boy.
I'm sorry, it's a goop joke. Come on, we need a little levity here, guys. But, yeah, so is that what's happening? Her brain was melting. Because they had that scary shot where she was reaching for her coffee mug, and she couldn't grab it, remember? That one... That's what I mean. This movie's so chock full of just images of here's the life that you lead, almost exactly, but like shift it just a couple inches to the side, and how scary does all of that become?
Well, and I thought it was really great how they were able to
quit touching your face, Griffey.
I'm touching my beard, not my face.
Same thing.
So is that the same?
What this movie really did well was that it kept the audience in the dark about certain things, much like you would be in real life. So
absolutely. As
a virus comes, you're like, it may have already hit, and much like in this movie, you just see people getting sick, and then you follow through how they have to find why all these people are getting sick. And I thought that was, to go back to what you were asking earlier, Griffey, that was what I found so fascinating was how do these departments trace back steps so that they can understand where it came from and everything else. So that was a really great way to go and get us introduced not only to the effects of the virus, but how it got spread.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point too. Of like Griffey, you talk about like the world's like set up to propagate the virus, but also fortunately, like as that movie shows from almost 10 years ago, even at that time, we had great measures in place to be able to track origins. Like it was once they knew what they were looking for, they just followed Gwyneth Paltrow around the casino and could track it when well-established systems were in place. And
but wait a second, I do have a question. Was she actually the first one, or were they saying it was the chef?
Well, it was.
Remember, he didn't wash his hand.
I think they're saying the bat was the carrier. The pig ingested.
Right, I get that, but he was cutting that pig up, and then he shook her hand with his bloody hand.
So he was patient zero, but he may have been immune to it. We never know because we never saw him.
He was the one that switched it off. Okay, I thought that at the end there saying is actually the chef.
Well, actually, because he just wipes his hands. He doesn't even wash his hands. So even though he might not have gotten sick, he had the virus on his hands.
I'll admit I've been guilty of this before. Like when I was a younger man, you'd be like, I didn't touch it. Why do I have to wash my hands? And then I married a nurse who was like, you fucking moron. Like really got on me, right?
You mean you actually listened to her?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are things when you're like, oh yeah, this could contagion me. Like I don't want to do that, right?
And that's
but this is the thing. I think there's
contagion, and you were motivated,
right,
to take better care of yourself and take this more seriously.
I don't know, man. Because I felt Matt, and I think it was cool that they cast Matt Damon in this role too. Like normally Matt Damon's the guy who like, yes, I can grow potatoes on Mars out of my feces. But you take Matt Damon and just make him the most helpless character. And it extra drove that home to me, right? Like besides the moment, I almost turned the film off. I'm not lying. I almost canceled this whole thing when they did the kid. When he came home from losing his wife and the kid was in the bed.
Yeah.
That one gave me like a good meltdown cry. I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
Like I almost turned it off and didn't come back. But there's something so human about the actors that give me something to at least relate to and pull me through those moments. But that's the thing that becomes watching Matt Damon walk through this world was really striking to me this time because, again, we have this thing now where I told you, Mike, sometimes I'll just text you and I'm just pissed. Where I'm like, okay, so should we still be getting Amazon deliveries? You know?
Yeah, there's lots of questions.
Yeah, we don't know what is good and what is bad, right? They say stay inside if you're not an essential employee.
Yeah.
But yesterday, unannounced, a True Greens guy showed up at my house and was just doing my yard.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
well, that's Indiana has a very broad definition of essential. And,
right.
I don't want to undermine, people's careers, and I know their livelihoods are at stake. But at the same time,
right.
I'm not 100% sure Indiana's definition of essential worker to get out of the stay-at-home order is in any way productive to optimizing our outcome.
Yeah, but like, can they even lock us in? Like, but that's what I mean. What I like is that what this movie doesn't do, I think Kevin nailed it, right, is they don't nail us necessarily with so much detail.
Yeah. No, there
are several scenes where they give us the science, right, of this is an R knot because you guys don't know what that is, right? And they'll lay it out. Boom, 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 boom. But then you watch and you, like Kate Winslet dealing with that town council Karen, right? And you're like, this fucking bitch here. You want to reach to the screen and strangle her, right? When she's like, it's the biggest shopping day of the year, right?
So that's actually one thing that like struck me in that movie is like all the political backlash that the CDC and the health departments were getting. They were just bumps in the road because like everything they wanted to do, they still got done. Like she's like, who's paying for this quarantine facility? Doesn't get an answer, but it still gets set up. You guys can't, announce this to the public, and because we got to close everything down. They still end up doing what they need to do, despite the political backlash, because they don't really explain like how they got around it, but they still did. Whereas like that's one of the scary things.
Eventually, you need a place to put all those dead bodies.
Huh?
And that's the scene in the movie that terrified me. I'll let Kevin talk on this a little bit, but I found the Kate Winslet character extra fascinating in this movie. Because I fucking kid you not, I forgot she died. Mm-hmm. And when she died, I was furiously mad. I had seen this movie before, and I was like, what the fuck? I was like, she did everything right. She called the housekeepers in the room service. I was like, she did everything right.
Well, and it became didn't know what she was dealing with.
But that's the thing, right? And I think that's what this movie does, too, is it casts really famous Oscar-winning actors and then fucking murders them. Right, so that it really hits home, and that I'll let Kevin talk to that with these characters. That becomes the fear: is that what it fucking takes?
The thing that was really impressive with how Soderbergh filmed this was that a lot of these characters were done in days. Winslet shot all of her scenes in 10 days. Paltrow was done in 3. She barely connected with Damon. I mean, they filmed almost all their scenes separately, but again, the way that they film. And the way the Soderbergh goes and takes each one of these characters is that they have their own isolated stories where you understand what it's like to have to deal with things from an individualized level. This was not an Ocean's 11. They did not solve all the shit like some sort of ragtag crew. This was purposeful in the fact that Matt Damon in dealing with family things is its own thing. He's not going to ever run into Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne and his group have to do their side of things, and that's going to be its own journey. And so that's what I found so interesting was that I mean, Griffey, you had talked about that scene with Damon. How gut-wrenching was it when they told him that your wife is dead?
Yeah.
Like when he goes,
that
okay.
Blew my mind. Because I remember seeing it the first time being like, what was that? He told me that was something, or not told, me and him talk a lot. No, he told us at the Q&A, he told the audience, he said that was something that a doctor told him happens all the time.
Yep.
Is that people hear this news and it's so sudden and unbelievable that it's like their brain shuts off and they push right past it. And they're like, all right, so should I like bring her tennis shoes? She really likes, Pop-Tarts. Mm-hmm. And the doctor's like, no, she's gone.
Yep.
And I think what you just hit on, Kevin, is that is probably, to me, if I was like watch one scene in the movie, that or Elliot Gould in the diner, right? Those would be my two scenes. Because just him sitting there and this is something else they do is a lot of the characters that die, they will show, it happens in like a 3-cut succession, it feels like, where here's where they are, Here's them doing their last moment, right? Gwyneth Paltrow grabbing the coffee, Kate Winslet trying to hand a guy her coat. And then we just cut to their dead faces.
Yep.
And there's no like agonizing, I love you, I wish I would have been a better one. It's just so matter-of-fact, force of nature, this A-list celebrity that you think should exist in this movie, like they won't die, they're the A-list, is fucking dead so fast.
Yeah.
And so Matt Damon not being able to process that is a great lens with which all of us to study. Because again, I think even now, like none of us can comprehend what is happening now, let alone what's coming down the road. And it becomes this overwhelming, just fucking terrifying pool that we're all living in.
Yeah. And follow up on Kevin said, I think one of the great things about this movie, too, is that there's no main character. Like, the virus is the character. You just have all these, like, ancillary characters each kind of doing their own part. Like, Matt Damon, like, his part is actually, I think, in mirroring it to this real-world situation, is one of the most important parts. He is the optimal citizen. He keeps a level head. He doesn't panic. He adapts as best he can. He follows the recommendations by the specialists. He looks out for his loved ones and keeps them from making bad decisions. So, yeah, I loved Matt Damon's character. And if I can say anything to anybody, watch that movie and do what Matt Damon does.
So you're pro looting your neighbor's house?
Okay, outside of that, don't loot your neighbor's
house. But that's what I mean. Even Matt Damon, right? The scene of Matt... Yeah,
I forgot about that scene.
Pulling a shotgun on a child to keep away from his other child.
Well, that's what I was like. I can't follow Matt Damon's orders, because if I found some dude mounting my daughter in a plague, I would be using that shotgun to beat his fucking brains.
But he didn't. I wonder why he brought the shotgun to that scene. Like,
No, because the scene before, he looked out his back window and he saw people robbing a neighbor.
Oh, so no, he went over. He had the shotgun. I don't know why he brought the shotgun to get his girlfriend's boyfriend off of her.
No, because he went home, he saw footsteps, and was like, where's my kid? The only thing I have left in this world. Oh, there's a 13-year-old grinding his dick on her in the plague. Like, I would have beat that kid's... The fact he's like, Andrew, enough. I was like, Matt Damon, you're too soft. You'd be dead in this apocalypse. Pulls it back.
He's like, he recognizes that they're just dumb kids.
I would have beat that kid's ass. I'm like, you're rubbing your plague stick on my daughter? Her mom and brother just died, dude. Put the fucking dick down. I was so fucking furious at that scene. So mad.
But, I mean, that's like a real world thing that happens, you know?
Well, yes, because if I would have been that kid, I 100% would have been that dude trying to get laid while everyone's dying. You're like, I'm 15. I don't understand.
Hell, even when they're like 21, look at Florida. Like, they have horrible insight.
Right. But that's what I mean, right? What is funny about Matt Damon, because he plays everyone's dad, right? He's like the dad or the uncle, like the good guy you like. He is reduced to looting. It seems like they're about to loot the grocery store, too. There's kind of riots breaking out. This is a really like, he's screaming to let them off the bridge. He has to know why they can't let them out on that bridge.
I did love that scene, though, where he's like,
just
let us through. He's like, I will detain you if you keep... He's like, where are you going to put me? He's like, get out of here.
But then he backed out. He pussed out, dude. Yeah, you should have been like, lock me up.
Yeah, I'd be like...
Yeah, in another state. Bring my daughter. I think the Matt Damon scene, though, that was the best was him at the food truck, man. Because that is also the insufficient response makes it really scary to me, right? But there is a moment where Matt Damon's seeing the food trucks and he just goes, there's nothing in there. Everyone is rioting, right? They're like, we're out of portions for the day. They start fucking running. They're chasing and beating each other's ass. He tries to save a lady like a chivalrous guy. Looks up, and in the mass of people, he starts kind of jogging like, oh, I got to get in there. And then realize he has like this coming back moment where he's like, no, that's stupid.
Yeah.
But the fucking...
Really?
For just moments, he is swept up in the hysteria.
Yeah, and that's totally normal and be expected as long as like you can pull yourself back from it. But that scene though did bug me because I'm like, this is like the worst possible intervention that the military can do. Let's gather a bunch of people and put them in a line, and not that's even, like maybe like hand out like tickets like. That way when there's enough before you set the food, protect the people that have the food so they don't get attacked. Hell, when I remember when I was a teenager and I stood in line for a PS2. There were guards that guarded me back to my car, like, for that, because they were worried about people robbing. Like, in a pandemic situation.
Yeah. The pandemic is like when PlayStation 2 dropped.
I'm just going to hope that they would have like better, they'd be more organized and better prepared for people to try and rob those who got food from those who couldn't get it.
Right, but I think that's an important decision the movie makes, which is because they do that like 5 times at least, where they'll show people like, hey, here's something, right? Whether it's the pharmacist with forsythia, or the people with the food or whatever, they will do the, hey, there are just people in line, all shoulder to shoulder, and someone is coughing.
Right. Yeah, and that's like, and we see that now, just even with like food in grocery stores.
But
like,
isn't that an important decision of the movie, though? Because it's showing that us, the people, and the government, we can't communicate well enough to immediately understand that waiting in line at those food trucks is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But that's important, though, because one of the things in the movie that happens, too, and this is where Jude Law's character comes into me, right, is the government isn't shown as this, oh, they just have all the answers and it's good. They're fucking trying to figure it out and terrified like everyone else.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think every time they show lines like that, that's an important moment. It shows that we're all just trying as best we can, but, you know, no one knows what the fuck to do.
And I know, but at the same time, I think it shows we're predictable. Like, we know how people are going to act. We need, before we do anything, more particularly with, like, the food trucks, you need to have organization and preparation in place before you're just like, hey, here's some trucks, first come, first serve.
And you're saying that now, but what happens in that movie, even if they have more armed guards? When they start running out of food, people are going to do what
Which is why you don't just,
do.
like...
And they're going to fucking rush those soldiers.
Have unlimited food and first come, first serve.
But that's what I mean. You're talking about this like they can easily solve these problems. None of this is easily solved.
No, it's
like
not easy,
one
but
of the
there's
scenes
certain
that
things,
sent chills down my spine.
Mitigated.
They just choose who gets the vaccine based on ping pong balls. And you're like, yeah, it's scary as fuck. So you're like, that's how they decide?
It's not decide who gets it, it's who gets it first.
Yeah, but you think there should be some kind of fucking priority list. Do you have children that depend on you?
Right.
Blah, blah, you know, and that's what I mean. It's some of these things are to see. You rarely see a movie like even Outbreak, right? Outbreak goes to extraordinary lengths to villainize the government, right?
We'll get back to Outbreak and how ridiculous.
Yeah, you rarely see a movie that says the government is also scared and helpless like you are.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin.
That's good.
Walk me through Jude Law. Because this took an extra interesting point because Alex Jones this week just got banned from Google for spreading false claims about
thank God
coronavirus. So who knew that he was telling us, Jude Law was telling us what was coming down the road. But I think Jude Law was my personal favorite part of the movie.
Okay. What was your favorite part of the movie?
I like the idea of, I like his arc, first off. I don't think a lot of people had necessarily an arc, right? They're just people dealing with the larger thing. I think he honestly thought he was the good guy at the start and sells his soul. Right? Yeah. And I love watching that descent into madness.
Yeah.
What did you take from Jude Law in this movie, Kevin?
I felt like somebody that was as egregious as he was at the beginning at talking about what he was probably would not have had a come to Jesus moment towards the end. I feel like he felt like he was still doing the right thing. I don't know, like his character.
That's interesting.
His character was fine to me, and I think necessary. And I thought it was great to kind of show how media can spin up anything and spin up a cult following based on fear.
Mm-hmm. And this was before all that was every day like it is now.
Yeah, so it was a great way to get, but at the same time, I think that they were being almost too nice with his character by the end because I feel like they showed.
You said he had a come to Jesus moment. What do you think that is, other than he got caught?
They showed that he learned his lesson.
Did they?
You think he did?
Did they show he learned his lesson?
I don't know. I feel like maybe
it was more of like I'm screwed and I'm not going to get away with it. But I didn't see any remorse in that character.
Well, he didn't learn because he went right back out and was filming, to Kevin's point. But I don't know that. That's what I wonder at the end with Jude Law is because there are guys like that are conspiratorial minded and they see a boogeyman everywhere, right? In a scary scenario like this, you want to start laying blame and pinning things. And he thinks he's honestly got someone, right?
Right.
The difference is when he absolutely fakes being sick.
Right.
And he's like, if I'm alive tomorrow, you'll know it worked.
Once his message becomes profitable is when...
Well, that's the moment he first lies, right? Up until then, he might honestly think he's saving people, right? Like, you see this even with COVID. People are like, oh, it's a fucking Wuhan biological weapon.
Yeah.
And so maybe he thinks he's okay. Kevin, do you think that he's always a piece of shit the whole movie? Do you think that maybe he thinks he's a noble crusader at the start?
Yeah.
I mean, he has to think that on some level.
I think he's just...
he believes his own bullshit at the beginning and then profits on it later and then digs into it more. He digs into
well, once you start doing makeup on yourself, it's hard to... You can't say you're a noble crusader anymore. That's impossible.
So no, you know what? I guess because he wasn't incendiary by the end, and not that I feel like he was remorseful, but that he didn't triple down on the activities, I guess. But the part too that I thought was interesting was when he ran into the woman that he was with, right?
And the lady he was trying to sell stuff to,
and she was real sick in front of her house there or whatever. That was kind of an interesting moment where they did a good job of kind of showing the asshole that he is, right? So,
right, and then they just add a casual, "Oh, I'm pregnant."
Yeah,
fuck.
So, all right, here's a question for you guys. I think Jude Law's character was good in terms of being able to see what media does to kind of incite fear. What do we think of Marion Cotillard's character and how she was taken to that village and everything? What was I supposed to draw? Like, I know what I drew from it, but what did you guys draw from that?
Honestly, this is the swing and the miss of the movie to me.
Okay.
Because I love her as an actress, right? Her, like, solving the case in the casino, that was fine. I don't think we really needed it, though. You're like, I get it. Gwyneth Paltrow was there and people are dying. Okay, fine. Right? But when she gets kidnapped, right, taken hostage because they're like, we're going to get it first. I love that motion, right? Because this is a guy who is a government official. I think he was a government official.
Yeah, he was like a Chinese
saying, I'm going to hamstring this entire coordinated world effort to stop this disease to save a tiny fucking village in the middle of nowhere, right? On a symbolic level, I love that gesture because even those of us that are public servants or think we're doing right, I think if push comes to shove, you're like, yeah, I'm going to make sure my family's okay. Yeah. I think that's where we all will start breaking down, any of us, right? I think it's unavoidable.
Right.
And so I love them kidnapping her. What I don't like is then coming back and her being like, you know what? This is pretty swell. That's the thing that I could have done without. And then even at the airport, they're like, yeah, of course we gave them placebos. They're terrorists, right? And all terrorists think they're good, but what they did was kidnap someone who was helping us solve patient zero. That's fucking horrible.
But she also realized that in that village, by giving that placebo, that a bunch of children were going to die. So I think that's where her panic at the end came from.
A bunch of children are going to die everywhere in this movie. In fact, they show us multiple dead kids on screen.
I mean, this was months of time that she was there. So she obviously formed an attachment.
Yeah, she got Stockholm Syndrome, for sure.
Well, I don't know if she even, yeah, sure, there's probably some element of Stockholm Syndrome there. But she was also, those kids didn't kidnap her. Those kids were just...
But this gets to Kevin's point. What are we supposed to take from that? That
I think
it's okay you kidnap me because your village is dope?
No, I think what to take away from it is exactly what you said, is in the end, all these organizations, these governments, these healthcare systems, the workers on the ground, they're all human and they all have attachments. And in all likelihood, we are going to, all people in those systems are going to bend the rules some way to benefit the people they care about. I think most of us aren't self-serving that we're going to try and save our own butts, but we are going to try and save our loved ones.
Yeah, but I feel like you could have carried that with Lawrence Fishburne's character. Like Lawrence did.
Exactly. Lawrence Fishburne's character did the exact same thing.
Yeah, you don't have to double down on it.
They have a better example of this, which is John Hawkes, the janitor, doesn't kidnap Lawrence Fishburne.
There you go.
Right? He just keeps being a good dude and then is rewarded by his kid getting the inoculation first, right?
So it's not that I thought it made the movie worse. I think that it could have been. I felt like the movie could have been a little bit more streamlined by not having that aspect of it. I don't know why we had to go on that journey. I was more interested in fighting the virus, not how somebody was trying to.
And I think that's fair. I think like the World Health Organization official could have been utilized in a much different way to show a broader picture.
And really what they did is they used her to show that other governments didn't trust us and who, because they thought we were in cahoots together as like
which
the rich
is what
nation.
Every country in the world right now is doing, is accusing the World Health Organization of being in cahoots with some other country.
Right, but then I don't want to find out that a Marion Cotillard got kidnapped and was like, it's cool though.
Wait, what?
It's not cool to kidnap. It's not okay.
No, I'm not saying it's cool to kidnap.
It sounded exactly like you're saying Mike Cloud will kidnap.
I'm not saying I will kidnap.
Kevin heard it too. I'm just saying.
People in the world may take and probably will take extreme measures.
In this movie saying it's okay, and I didn't like that.
Sure.
I don't think she should be running from the airport like it's a Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan movie to go back to her kidnap. Yeah, right.
You've
got mail, you've got hostage. You know what
Griffey, to your point, I honestly, that's them taking it the step too far too, where it's like now she's going back to all the kids. If anything, I think the remorseful, like where she feels terrible, but she has to go on with her life, hopefully fighting and doing the right thing, would have probably meant more in my mind than her going back and I don't know, going back to that village and doing what, like
I don't know what she was going to do for the village, because she can't drag a case of vaccines back with her.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So I that part totally was a miss to me, right? Because to me, the movie is, you've got the guy who thinks he's noble, who becomes, a profiteer in the face of death. That's an important role, right? The everyman who's caught up in the enormity of this, that's an important role. The medical field worker who's face to face with these horrible conditions, that was really important. And it felt like every other character on like the global medical team, I would have shrunk almost all of that down to like one character if it were me. Maybe Cheever as an administrator and a doctor.
But I don't believe that's representative of the solutions or the people involved with the solutions that have to be made. If anything, you have to have all those levels so you can see how fucking crazy it gets.
Right.
That's a good point, because then you see the layers of bureaucracy. That's a good point.
And also, you just realize it's not just one person defying all superiors to save the world. Like, this is always going to be like an organized.
But I'm saying, isn't that exactly what the movie told us? Is that Elliot Gould's like, fuck you, and he makes a step, and then the other doctor goes, fuck you, and she makes the step that saves us.
Josh,
well, then you have to have a bunch of people defying bad orders. Then, if you can't just have one.
Josh, a callback to Hunt for October. Elliot Gould is Jack Ryan. Like, he was like, fuck you, I'm going to do the right thing and make this shit happen. Like,
well, I love that too, because he's in that cafe and he's like, no. He's like, I won't be able to enjoy a latte here until this is solved.
Elliot Gould saved the world because he loves chai lattes.
Yeah, but that's what this movie is, right? It's all government officials should avoid orders and do what they think is best.
No, that isn't what
People should kidnap until they get vaccines.
Let me think. But think about it. Who defied orders?
Every single character.
Well, no.
Matt Damon is a looter.
Who did?
Right? Matt Damon's a looter. Marion Cotillard sympathizes with their kidnappers. Cheever tells his people and not the world. Right?
Well, that's not.
I guess Kate Winslet doesn't do anything wrong.
He gets court-martialed for that. That's not. He wasn't like breaking mass protocol to protect his family. Like, it was. If you're being a utilitarian, then it's wrong. But I mean, that's a whole moral gray area.
I'm just saying, what didn't he essentially just human insider trade? Like, isn't that exactly what we're mad at people for now? They're like, oh, you sold your stocks off because you had info. If you tell my neighbor who's your cousin to leave and I'm stuck here in the hot zone,
I mean, what kind of robot will we be?
Trading.
Like, yeah, my family's probably going to die if I don't say anything.
Isn't that the point, though?
Is this the moment in the podcast where Dandino usually is like, Griff, you're taking liberties? Like,
yeah, I mean, that probably happens all the time. I'm just saying, I'm way more mad at people for not telling me I need to leave the city I'm in than for making millions off of a stock trade, whatever. Like, I think that is actually the most despicable moment in the movie.
What, where he tells his family to leave?
Where he tells his person specifically after they say not to. And you could say it's insidious to not, right? Because because essentially they leave Kate Winslet to die there, which they should because she was going to die anyways. And don't bring her back so they can bring back a senator and lock down the important people and blah, blah. I get it. I understand. We all hate that aspect of, wow, that sucks.
But that's a probable thing that's going to happen. And we see it already that senators are getting
But what I'm saying is when he's given the order and he's like, I will defy it for my own girlfriend, fiance, girlfriend at the time, not even his daughter, not like, his wife of 30 years. Isn't that his fiance? And he's just going to be like, okay, she'll get out and fuck everyone else.
I don't think that was the thoughts. I think he just wanted to protect his loved ones.
I know, I'm saying that's not, but that is the important thing this movie shows is even Cheever is cheating around the edges.
Right.
Because and you see it too. And John Hawkes, again, the silent MVP of the movie, is sitting there and he just, Lawrence Fishburne looks at him like he got caught and he goes, hey man, I got people too. And that's the reality of the world.
And doesn't
Lawrence
he go out
Fishburne
and
is
tell everybody?
abusing his efforts.
Doesn't the janitor goes out and tells everybody, right?
Well, I mean, sure, he might tell his people, but there are probably a fuckload of them. That's what struck me in this movie, too, is how fast the virus moves and how fast the cutting is when we're with sick people. The amount of people that just think it's in everyone's best interest to not tell us information is startling to me in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's what gives rise to guys like Jude Law's character.
Right.
You cannot hold back, because that's the thing. Cheever, who is our kind of moral authority for the whole movie, when he does that and Jude Law cracks his ass on that TV show, you're like, now I understand how this happens.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I mean?
I don't necessarily, I mean, I guess there's arguments on both sides, but I don't necessarily disagree with you that keeping the public ignorant is the best course of action.
It's weird I'm making this argument too, because I'm going to make the exact opposite argument and outbreak. but I think people should know what the fuck is happening.
I have optimism I have cautious optimism, I should say, in people's ability to handle the truth. And I don't think people will mass panic as much as they will have their own coping mechanisms, which I think are equally predictable. They will do what they're doing. They'll go to the stores, they'll stock up, they'll prepare, they'll hoard stuff, they'll deny that it's a big deal, they'll get angry or lash out. But I don't think you'll see mass hysteria, I guess I would say. I don't think people get hysterical.
Man. Kevin, we don't know anything about medicine, right? What would you do? Would you rather than be like, hey, Kevin, Indy is fucked. Would you say, I better stay just in case, or fuck this, man, I'm out?
Well, when they say Indy is fucked, what are you talking about?
You know how, in the movie, they're like, there's 6 hotbed cities, right? And those are what they lock down. Let's say they're like, Indy has 500 cases and growing.
Right.
Would you be like, I better anchor in, or I'm like, I gotta get the fuck out of here?
So one of the biggest things...
That's the hard question.
Oh, man. We're about to get real with this answer. When you are truthful with the general public and you're trying to protect them with a general message, those that decide to go against it probably have what's coming to them, because you don't disrupt everyone's lives and the economy and the opportunity for the world to go around to placate some sort of conspiracy theory. That's ridiculous. Right, yeah. You do this because you know that the end outcome is far, far worse than a couple of nut jobs deciding that they want to go and break the law and get out of there. So, man, I think the meanest thing that I could say is forget the people that decide that they want to go against that stuff. But there's a reason why you have to be able to get ahead of these things and really blow it out of proportion, because you want people to overreact and stay safe than underreact and act like nothing's wrong.
Yeah. I mean, that's the scary thing is I'm watching the movie and you're like, I want that information because I know I would do it. Like, I'd fucking get my kids in the car and be like,
where are you going to go? There's no safe place in the world.
Yeah, but if you tell me Indy's a hotbed, I'm going to not Indy. You know what I mean?
All cities are probably going to have large scale infections at some point in time.
But what I'm saying is the human nature aspect is I have to do anything that gives my kids a leg up. And if that means breaking quarantine and driving away, I would do that. And that's that's the weird thing that the movie puts you in that I don't know that I would have thought about earlier had we not been having this scenario. Watching the movie before, you'd be like, yeah, just stay in your house. Now I'm like, fuck, if I thought that was the difference, like I could give my kids a shot by driving to like BFE, I would.
But that's actually probably the worst thing you can do. Like,
I understand, but that's what the movie does. Is it's always putting you in these ethical gray areas.
But this isn't an ethical gray area. Literally, the safest thing you can do is stay home as much as you possibly can. Going out and driving to another place just increases your risk.
Well, I think the ethical gray area just being that sometimes people where they're at, they don't trust the other people around them or the area that they live in. So they're going to try and do everything that they can to remove themselves from what they think is an increased issue. Mike, you might be able to tell Griffey he's safe all day in his home, but Griffey's like, I know Barb and Dan across the street are fucking idiots, and they've got parties of 20 people over there all the time.
I need to find my neighbors still having people come in and out of their house every day right now.
Right.
If this was Contagion world,
they won't spread. As long as you stay in your house, they're not going to spread the infection inside your house from outside.
Yeah, you can say, but this is what I mean. This is the gray area I'm talking about is not my behavior. It's
right.
It puts you in the moment where you understand where someone like Bryan Cranston can say, "Sorry, they're idiots. Don't tell them." Because to me, I'm like, of course you tell the people the information. Right. This is America. We're free. But then you're like, I would probably be one of the people that panicked.
I mean, I guess you always got to weigh risk and benefit there. That are more people going to panic and be destructive if you tell them too much, or are more people going to blow it off and have an even worse outcome if they don't do anything at all because you didn't tell them?
Well, Grafiti just pivoted to something I don't agree with. Like, I'm much more of tell everybody everything.
I agree.
That's where my brain is.
Yeah.
But then I feel like I would also be bad in like the philosophical handshake agreement with the government that I'll take one for the team. I feel like I'd be irrational if I thought my kids were on the line.
Then you're that person that I'm saying, hey, good luck.
Yeah, I know. That's what is fucking crazy about this movie, right? And this movie does a great job of, again, it weaponizes our day-to-day lives, right? Whoever you fucking think you are and whatever you think your life is, it's this close to the edge, man. It's that fucking oblivion that they talked about when they were doing research for the movie. Yeah. Like, the scene that will haunt me forever is the guy on the bus that they call.
Says,
he's like, I picked her up and I'm sick, but I'm like, he's still going to work.
Yeah.
He's super fucking sick on a bus, coughing. Yeah. And when the bus rocks, he grabs both of the handposts. Yep. And you're just, that scene made me erupt in anger because I had an office job last year, right? And I had to take, they're like, oh, you have like 3 weeks of sick time. I was like, great. That's fantastic. That sounds reasonable. Well, I took 2 sick days because my kid was sick, right? And then I got sick and I, took a day off. And then the next day I was like, yeah, I'm still sick. I'm going to take a day off. And my boss like, oh, well, that's going to be like a write-up. And this, I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? I had 3 weeks. And they're like, you have sick days, but you can't use them.
Retro.
And I was like,
yeah, you earn it.
What? Yeah, and they're like, no, you have the days, but unless you pre-schedule a sick day,
really,
like a vacation request, that counts as the same as like missing a shift.
Yep.
And I was like, so I did. I came into work and I was sick as fuck. I probably coughed 10,000 times in my 9 hours there, wiping my nose all day. I had like 3 bags of cough drops just because I was like, I don't want to get fired. Because I was like, I'd only been there 6 months and and I was like, so they're charging you trouble, right? If you don't pre-schedule sick. I was like, bitch, I'm fucking sick.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, 3 of the old ladies that worked around me, they got sick and it became this big fucking ordeal and they're all mad at me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the bosses said I had to come in or I could get fired. Like,
yeah,
and that's the shit.
You're still seeing that to this day.
But that's what I mean. That scene was one of those scenes where I think all of us have gone to work sick, right? It's a very American ideal. You go to work, you go to class, you work hard, sniff through it, have some cough drops, you'll be fine. I wonder, this movie made me really scared about like what comes after this. Because again, like I said, I'm like, the next time I could imagine being on a bus or a subway, an airplane, like the next time I'm at a restaurant and I see someone coughing, like, oh boy.
I don't know. A lot of things go back to normal. Like 9/11 meant drastic sweeping changes in terms of our travel.
Sure.
And we thought that our lives would be turned upside down because of the amount of regulatory things we had to do. And if anything, we think back to the old times where it's like, dude, I used to be able to go up and just get a ticket at a counter and fucking go on a plane. That's crazy. Like, so I think that people being in this moment understand the ramifications of why we have to live in a new world, and so it's not going to hit them as hard.
This one's more personal than a terrorist attack, though, don't you think?
What's that?
Like, this one's going to be scarier on a personal level than a terrorist attack to
no.
See, I feel like it, because where we live, it's like the thought of any terrorist ever targeting us, you're like, that's only Red Dawn. That's the only time that would ever happen is the movie Red Dawn. This is scary because it can be in my home.
No, it's a controllable variable. Like, I think it's a controllable variable. Like, a terrorist attack, you're depending on others to go and keep you safe when they're screening people. This is literally like, if there's a virus that happens again, I know I didn't get sick last time because I didn't leave my fucking home. So I think that I think that there's part of it that's a little bit different. Now, one thing you do have right, Griffey, is that like this is obviously affecting so many more people.
Yeah.
In terms of like, I see a friend of mine that got sick than New York, right? This is not a 9/11 in the fact that I'm directly connected with somebody that just passed away yesterday. Yeah. But I also think that the people that lived through 9/11 that weren't affected by 9/11 understood why we have to live in a new world, much like we'll have to live in a new world here.
Yeah.
We're very
I think that's what the movie does, though, is it shuffles you so fast through everyday moments that should be innocuous. A woman just a person forgets her cell phone and she hands it to her, right? Death sentence. Hey, take a selfie with me. Hey, take a handshake. All these small I'll tell you the one thing is I was fucking repulsed because I had to Google it. And I did not understand that there are bars that put out bowls of bar nuts.
You didn't realize that? That's like...
I've never in my life ever sat at a bar and said, here's a bowl of communal fucking peanuts, and you would put your hand in there and eat those. My wife did say, we've been to the popcorn bar. The bar I used to work at had like popcorn trays, but that had a scooper at least.
Did you ever go to Texas Roadhouse, the barrels of peanuts?
Yeah, and I'm repulsed by Texas Roadhouse. The fact that people are like, I can throw peanuts on the floor, so I'll willingly do that, makes me angry at them.
Yeah.
Why on earth is that fun for you to just make more work for someone and have to step on peanut shells, you monsters?
I definitely think our threshold, though, you're right, is going to like what we used to accuse people of like being like germaphobes, like maybe not quite to like a pathologic extreme, but people are definitely be much more conscientious in the future. People are definitely going to take viral illnesses much more seriously in the future. We're not going to blow them off like we did. But you talk about like relying on other people and controllable variables. I mean, one benefit we do have where we live, in all likelihood, we had plenty of warning this time. We'll have plenty of warning again, probably. We'll see how we hopefully be more prepared. Huh?
It just takes one McDreamy, as we'll learn soon.
But we're still dependent on the experts. We will always be dependent on somebody else to protect us.
Maybe. Will there be experts in the future? We're moving to an expertless future. That's what I mean.
I hope this is a lesson that shows people we need experts, that we stop this kind of movement where experts were getting ignored because they were elitist. They weren't elitist. They just dedicated their lives to and put a lot more work and effort into something that most people aren't going to put their work and effort into.
Isn't it insane? They work their whole life for one moment. Yeah. They spend their whole life working for one moment, and they're like, it's here, the moment where I'm needed. And everyone's like, fuck you. Think you're better than me?
Yeah, you know what? All those people, it's like, listen, when we have to go to an expert about drinking Mountain Dew and masturbating, we'll go and ask your fucking opinion about stuff.
That's when the Josh Griffiths of the world step in to fill the void, my friends. No, I don't know. I mean, I hope Kevin's right, because I think the scene that absolutely was so necessary on this fucking vile film is the prom. Like, the prom at the end is one of the sweetest moments in a movie I've seen in years, man. I love that scene. And I thought it was so great. Although I was like, you're letting that dude in your house now? Again,
he got vaccinated. He was good.
I know, but he was already humping his daughter in the snow. Disrespecting. I was like, that's ridiculous.
He wasn't humping her. He was just laying on top of her.
He was humping her.
There was no...
Be real. There was some minor humpage. He was definitely rolling the sausage back and forth. I thought it was actually,
on its own note, kind of like a good, subtle, like, good father moment. It's like, his daughter's a teenage girl. She's going to want to be affectionate with boys, and he understands that. And he's not like, get out the gun and shoot the kid that's trying to kiss my daughter. Like, he's like,
so should he his boys, but like mints on the pillow? What are you talking about here? I left some Andy's mints on the pillow. Just throw everything in the laundry room on the way out.
I don't think it was encouraging it that far, but like,
no, I thought it was sweet. I thought it was really good though. I was like, because I think one of the scenes in the movie that struck me, and I totally blew past this before, is when the daughter's like, I lose another 144 days. It's not fair. And you're like, you little bitch. It's like, your mom and brother died. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Well, but then you're like, you know what? They're kids. They are kids.
Every generation spanning back to, as far as I can remember, lost a significant amount of time in their lives because of something.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this isn't Vietnam.
Yeah.
Like, you're at home with your parents. Hey, this isn't World War II. Hey, this isn't World War One. Like, every generation has a moment where all of a sudden you have to make this global sacrifice to go and do something that's out of the norm. And I like the fact that they had that moment because, she was pissed off, which makes sense. But it
makes perfect sense for her, but you're furious at her as an adult.
You're so furious. You're like, you're staying home? Like, I'm sorry. I get it, but you're not dying.
But I do love Matt Damon as a father throughout this movie because he never like lashes out at her. He never like loses his cool. Like you just understand she's a teenager and a teenage mind in this situation. I mean, can you remember all the stuff we thought was like world ending when we were that age? Like if you told us,
I'll let you in on a secret, Cloud. I'm still that emotionally stunted. That happens to me like 3 times a day still, and this isolation is making it worse. We're like very small things. Like the other day, I just wanted a sandwich, right? And I don't know why, but I was like, this sandwich means a lot to me in my brain. And I went down, and on my son's plate, there were 3 pieces of bread shredded and destroyed. And I was like, okay. And I went to get bread, and there was nothing left, just one heel. And I couldn't have the sandwich, and I got so irrationally angry. I was like, do you guys know we could be facing the end of time? And someday you'll need those calories you just wasted. No, and it struck me. You're like, oh my God, like I am the teenage girl. Like I'm sitting here judging her in the movie. And you're like, I'm acting exactly like her.
You actually hit on a good point of, we kind of undermine what we're having to do and saying, oh, you just have to sit on your couch and binge Netflix. Poor you. But no, this is freaking hard. Staying inside and isolating yourself from the world is totally unnatural for the way we were programmed to survive. And we don't want to undermine it to people because I want people to know that I know it's hard. And those of you that are staying at home, I appreciate it because you are protecting my kids and my family because I have to go out and see it and I got to bring it home. So I do everything I can, but everything you do protects us and protects them. And I don't care about my life, but I know it's hard for you too. And I just want you to know I greatly, 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 hugely appreciate it for those of you that do it and those of you that don't. That's why I get so mad.
Well, we appreciate your life, man.
I love that.
We love you very much. I mean, yeah, that's as good as you can say it, man. Is I think we're all just scared, and the guys like you are actually out there doing stuff about it. I'm glad you're out there.
Much. I mean, the ER docs, think, the hospitalists, the ones that are intubating people, they're doing far more than me.
It's like you said in the movie. It's not a contest of who's doing the most. Everyone's doing their part, man, and you know.
But yeah, you guys are too. Like we're all in it together, and staying home. I just want to say I know it's hard. I don't want to undermine it by saying poor you sitting on the couches having to Netflix and binge all day, because no, it's totally unnatural and it's hard. And you guys are doing a huge part, and maybe even one of the hardest parts out of any of us by doing it. And I do appreciate it. So please, if you're not doing it, please do it.
Do it, guys. Fucking do it. Just stay inside. We live in an amazing golden age of movie watching. Mike and I actually have been playing our Dungeons & Dragons game on Skype. We had drinks Friday night with Kevin as well on Skype. It's not what we all want, man, but it's what we fucking need. You know what I mean? Yeah. We all need to channel a little Matt Damon right now and just do what's necessary until we all get our prom, man. And
before we
if we're lucky, hopefully we'll get there.
Before we get there, I want to pick on some of the little tiny things that this movie actually is really great and educational, and it was a great projection. It just almost kind of looking in, like if you were watching it then, would be considered looking into a crystal ball now. She tells the one dude, quit touching your face. They use the term social distancing. What else is there? I think we kind of touched on the rest of it. Like, yeah, be careful of false hope medications. Let the research come first.
You made me really scared, though, because I'm watching myself and us in the Skype, and I didn't realize how much I touched my face.
I know. I'm sitting here. I didn't want to ruin the podcast by like you guys, both of you, have been watching him, and I don't want to interrupt like 20 times to say, quit touching your face. Yeah, you guys.
But no, you're making me nervous, though. Now I'm thinking about touching my face, and that's all I want to do.
All of a sudden your face gets itchy, especially with the beard.
Oh, yeah, the beard. No, I get it, man. Hey, again, though, I know we're excited here because we're just trying to still talk movies, man, because I think everyone needs just anything that makes them okay. And I'm glad you're here to, give us some info, Cloud. So what he's saying is really important, guys. I hope you all stay in, and I hope you all watch Contagion, and I hope you also watch Outbreak. Both are available, I know it might be hard to watch those at this time, but maybe important, man. Maybe important to sit down and show them around and, understand why we're all in this moment we're in. And that guys like Mike are so desperately hoping that we all take this seriously. So that's it.
Say, if you need medical care, get medical care. Don't ignore it and blow it off. As well, call your doctor if you feel sick. Call your doctor.
What is the best step, Mike? If someone, because I was told, and maybe it's because I don't know anything, I was told if you start to feel symptoms, don't go to the hospitals.
Call your doctor first. You can
call,
yeah.
You don't want to overwhelm them.
Talk about your symptoms, and they can kind of guide you best from there on what's the best place to go. Because the last thing you want to do is show up and not be sick and sit in a waiting room and get sick. So we're kind of having to change how we provide healthcare. It's not always optimal, but we always got to weigh our risks and benefits. Because people are still going to get ear infections. People are still going to get strep throat. People are still going to get pneumonia. People's asthma is still going to act up. And many of these symptoms mimic, or COVID mimics many other symptoms, many other diseases that you don't want to necessarily write out. So you need to make sure that you get some guidance on the best way to manage your symptoms, the best place to go, and steps to take to make sure that nothing else hurts you or gets you sick. But yeah, it's a case-by-case thing. So talking to your doctor
drove me nuts, right? That's first step. You see all these people are like, well, it's just like the flu. Like, I'm like, guys, the flu is still a thing too.
Yeah.
All these things add up.
We have vaccines for the flu.
Scary. This is scary stuff. I don't know, man. I think this movie's scary, but hopefully it still can provide entertainment for the rest of us. I hope this podcast did that. Maybe some information and some entertainment. I'm assuming the movie we're talking about next, Outbreak, will be a little bit more about entertainment, as I don't think there's an enormous amount of learning.
I'd say Contagion is very educational. Outbreak, no. Just be entertained. Don't get any medical advice from Outbreak.
Or do? ? No, I'm just kidding. All right, for the film Alchemist, I'm Josh Griffey. Thank you again to Dr. Mike Cloud and Kevin Weinman for joining me We'll be back momentarily for Outbreak.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks, buddy.